Hello everyone, how are you doing and welcome back. So, if you're like myself, I'm guessing you clicked on this video as the majority of the time you play Battlefield 1 as a solo player. Now I'm going to cover some of the things I do whilst playing, because even as a solo player, you can still make an impact on the game and still perform well, if not come top of the scoreboard. And overall, these tips will help you get better at Battlefield 1. Starting off, which class should you play? I'd say 70% of the time I'm running the medic class for the benefit of being able to heal myself. However, if another class is required, say the assault or support, then I'll switch to that. But since I can't really rely on my teammates to either heal, I always pick the medic class. I pick these classes as for me, I personally find I can support my team better, whether that's reviving, supplying ammo or destroying vehicles on the battlefield. You can also choose the recon class if you want to sort of use it in that spotting role, being able to put flares up on the objective and those types of things, that can really help your team out, whether they're in air vehicles or sort of tanks or even as infantry soldiers. Enemies being spotted helps everybody. So if you want to play recon, make sure you're always spotting. But for me, those other three classes, the medic, support and assault, I find I could be much more of a team player, and I personally enjoy just going around healing and reviving everyone. Now, more than likely, you won't be communicating with your squad and receiving callouts. Therefore, you're going to need to utilise the next best thing for information, which is the map. Being able to read the map is a game changer in your overall performance on the battlefield, as spotted enemies and vehicles will appear on the map, meaning you can get a rough idea of where the enemy are. This, combined with being able to see capture points, can allow you to predict the enemy movement on the map and in turn manoeuvre around them and get the advantage over them when you get into that gunfight. Make sure you use the big map as well as the local map that you see in the bottom left corner. The expanded map, as we'll call it, gives you the whole overview of the map as a whole. Like, you'll be able to see enemy spawn, your spawn and all the flags in between, and anyone that's spotted, whether that's in a vehicle, an infantry, on a horse, you'll be able to see them come up on the map, and you'll be able to get the full overview and kind of see, kind of how things are playing out. If there's a big group of enemies, maybe 5-10 soldiers running to a flag, that's where the majority of the battle is going to be, in and around there. So you can sort of maneuver yourself around there and be able to flank behind them and pick people off that are coming to that flag. Using that local map and the big map will help so much with your experience on the battlefield and how you kind of go about playing each game. The majority of the time, when you play Battlefield 1, you should avoid running it down the middle of the map into the quote-unquote meat grinder. This is something that you see on sort of those more smaller maps where there's those narrow choke points, but on these big open maps as well, you still do see this happen. And essentially, for those that don't know, the meat grinder is where you get to experience every type of getting killed by every type of weapon, grenade, from any angle. You can't really do much. You essentially just run in, get maybe 1, 2, 3 kills and then get blown up. You'll then get revived and then you die straight away before even being able to get up. So it's just not a fun time, especially if you're new to Battlefield. You can just it's just not a fun time being able to learn the game this way. You don't really learn much, since you're just pretty much just running straight in, not really thinking about anything and just getting killed. So to avoid this sort of spawn die, you should use the minimap, and where you see little to no enemies is a place where you should go. Now, why should you go there, you may be asking. I found that I get better fights there. You won't get stuck in this spawn die circle for like 20 minutes until the game ends. You usually find 5 to 8 players, not all at once. Sometimes you do, but most of the time it's like groups of 1, 2, 3, 4 players, and it's people that have also picked up on that you shouldn't just go into these sort of meat grinder fights, and instead flank around the enemy and then come in from the sort of sides or behind and pick enemies off. In the long term, you get more kills this way, and you won't die as much either, and you can sort of learn the game, and you can get into those situations then where it's just you by yourself, but you're able to kill 4 or 5 enemies that come around the corner because you've learned how to sort of maneuver around those groups of players. By also sort of getting behind the enemy, you can pick off the stragglers of these meat grinder fights. People that are coming across from other capture points, or sort of on the outskirts of these meat grinder fights. You can just pick people off, you know, from the side, behind, and since their team's just continually not reading the map and just running into this like mess of players, you just get quite a few kills, and then you can sort of get your squad to spawn on you. Then you're able then to go and sort of backcap the enemy, and you can sort of change the dynamic of the flow of the map doing things this way. If you found these tips useful so far and want to see more content like this, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, as currently we're going after 1,000 subscribers before July 31st, 2023. Important tip that I see not many people talking about. I see it memed quite a bit, but nobody ever goes into explaining how to know when to engage enemies. Now that you've flanked around the enemy team and you're sort of either to the side of them or behind them, you need to know like how and when you should engage enemy players. Like you've probably seen in some of my gameplay videos in the past, and even in this video, sometimes I let 1 or 2 enemies run past me as I can hear more enemies coming. So that way then, once they've run past me, I'm able to engage them from behind, you know, and kind of get a better idea of how many enemies there are. I think there's a clip in the past, I'll try and find it, but essentially like I was by myself and I heard like a group of 15 or so players like coming across me, and I was there like, I'm not going to win this fight. So I just lay down and hid in cover and wait for them all to pass me and get to the point, and I sort of maneuvered myself over to this point, and then started working the outside of the point, you know, sort of hit and running players. I'd go in, get 1 or 2 kills, and then retreat, and then sort of get into a good covering position that's got some nice cover around me, and then anybody that tried to push me, I'd have the advantage over them. And I didn't get the point back, you know, there's too many enemies, but I was able to get, you know, 5-6 kills. Whereas if I just stood up when they were all running towards me, I would have got shot from like 5 different angles by several different people, and that would have been that. So, you know, you don't always have to shoot the first enemy that you see, since like most of the time you're by yourself. You know, you might have these squad mates around you and your teammates, but you're not communicating with them. You know, it's not like you're on a group with Discord and you're kind of communicating, you know, how to kind of go about this engagement and what enemy players are where. So, you know, like I said, you don't always have to shoot the first enemy that you see. And like I mentioned, engage, then retreat. You know, that hit and run tactic, you know, get a few kills, retreat, get into a new covering position, or even just maneuver around the, you know, to like a slightly different area and then engage them again. You don't want to stay in one spot. Like, if you've got like several players around you, enemy players, and you stay in this one spot, all that's going to happen is they're going to swamp your position, and you either get grenade spammed or shot from every angle. So you want to sort of, you know, just continually keep moving. Like I said, hit and run the enemy, cover the cover, and you can sort of get into these then situations that you see in either my videos or other people's videos, where you're able to kill, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus players, not at once, but you know, over a sort of 2-3 minute period. You know, you can sort of work them down and, you know, kill them all off, and in that way then your team's able to push forward again. And you can, by sort of getting used to that kind of movement and sort of how to engage the enemies, you can make a difference. You know, instead of getting, even if like you stall them, you know, even if you end up dying to like the last couple of guys, you've stalled them enough and killed enough of them where instead of it being like a group of 10 enemies going to that flag, it's now only like 3 or 4 enemies, and then those guys that are on that flag then defending it are able to deal with it a bit more, and you can spawn in and help. So I will do a separate video on that point, to be fair, and also on how to read the map, just because it is sort of things that I don't see talked enough about. These are just some bonus tips that I want to share that I find help me so much as a solo player. So being able to hear enemy footsteps and listening for them can help you so much when sort of knowing when to engage enemies and how many there are around you and what direction they're coming from. So if you haven't already, I do suggest you just getting a pair of headphones, you know, even like a cheap £5 like pair of Amazon. Just helps so much than just the sound coming from sort of your TV. As you're able to sort of really dial in if the enemy is sort of to your left, right, behind you, above you, if you're in a building, you know, you can get a real good sense of where they're coming from. You've probably seen this in my gameplay as well. Whenever I start shooting at an enemy, or even just before I start shooting at them, I'm spotting that enemy. Whenever you see an enemy, just spot them for your team, because you know, even if you get killed, at least that enemy's then spotted for a teammate that's around you who's then able to kill them. But it's just good as well, because if they go into cover, you know, and you say you've gone down to like 5 HP, you know, and they've just been able to get into that cover before you hit them that last bullet. By them being spotted, you're then able to maneuver around and come in from a better angle and take them out instead of just running straight at them. You know, because they might get into cover and then just maybe move slightly somewhere else, and then you come around the corner, they're somewhere else, and then you just get shot by them and killed. So just by spotting them, if they get into cover and then sort of retreat to somewhere else, you know where they've gone, and you can come at them from a good angle and kill them. And this is just a PC tip. You know, make sure you use the team and squad text chat. You know, if you know, like, so there's several enemies coming towards the C flag, you know, just type like several enemies coming from the C flag, or, you know, if there's a tank coming, you know, down towards D or something, you know, just be like tank going D. That way then you sort of teammates that have the chat open, you know, are able to read that and sort of react to it as well. You know, that's what I'm always doing as well, and I found it helps when other players do it as well. Because then I can always spawn back as an assault and then deal with that tank, or sort of retreat back to a flag if we're getting back capped. You know, just by reading something that somebody else has typed, it just helps so much with your team and sort of that whole team cohesion. So if you found this video useful, then make sure to leave a like. If you're new and you want to see more content like this, then make sure to subscribe, as it will really help us out, as currently we're going after 1,000 subscribers by July 31st. If you have any more tips that you want to share, you know, leave them in the comments down below. You know, help the next person out. And yeah, until the next one.